Hey y'all, so I want to talk about Simeon for just a little bit today and then we'll move on in the scripture. Things that we can notice or that we're told about Simeon is that he was a righteous man. Where is it? The King James says that he was just and that he was devout. And so he was an observer of the divine law. He was righteous, a careful observer of the divine law, giving much reverence to his service to the Lord. I think that is one thing that it's hard for us to kind of, bridge that connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And that, yes, there were things that you did because the law instructed you to do them and you were following the law. But it's still the spirit in which we do things. That's Colossians. This was not in my notes, but let's go there really fast. When I send out graduation cards, this is usually, I really thought it was Colossians. What I could be so wrong. Oh man. It's not Colossians, but I'm going to find it. I'll find it tomorrow and give you the actual reference. But it says that we would walk in a manner worthy of the calling, right? Calling as children of God, not anything, spooky or mystic or a mystery. What calling? No, that we would walk in a manner worthy of our calling as Christians. It's Ephesians 4, not Colossians 4. It's marked in my Bible, so I knew I'd find it somewhere. I knew where it was on the page. That's why you can't use it. I can't use a different Bible because I know where the scripture is on the page, and if I turn enough pages, I'll be able to find it. But Paul says in Ephesians 4:1, I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, appeal to and beg you to walk and lead a life worthy of the divine calling to which you have been called, with behavior that is a credit to the summons to God's service. So worthy of the call of Christ. He's talking to the church in Ephesus who has been called, right? If you are a believer, if you're a follower of Christ, then you are called. You have a purpose, right? And our first purpose is to be light, that we're to be salt and light. And so in our calling, in the place in which God has summoned us and placed us to work and move and live and be, that we would live a life worthy of his call. And that is what I hear when I read about Simeon. That he was just, he was devout, he was a careful observer of the divine law. Everything he did concerning the law, every box that he checked, he did it with care. It is very easy for us, because we don't have to keep the law, that we can check a box and our heart be far from it. And the Bible talks about that their lips are for me, they lip service, but no heart service. And so this man had heart service. He was a careful observer. And the Passion calls him a lover of God. A lover of God who was actively looking for the Messiah. Actively looking. Every day we say, oh Lord, may this be the day that we see your promise made manifest. May this be the day that we see your word made manifest. We wrap our heart tightly around the hope. We remind ourselves of the promise. How many times did Simeon have to remind himself of the promise? This man is old and he's ready to die, ready to go home. He's tired of getting up every day, but he knows that there is a promise with his name on it. That this man who has prayed for the Messiah, for the Christ to be born, has been given a promise that he would see it. His faithfulness in prayer, his devoutness to the law, his heart being a lover of God, was given a promise that he would see the Messiah. He would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. How many days do you think he had to remind himself about that promise? How many days do you think that Joseph and Caleb had to remind themselves about their promise, that they were going into the promised land? Everybody else died. Everybody else died. Think about that whole nation of Israel. Everybody, 40 and older, died. And you're looking, you and Caleb, and you're, 60. Everybody else is dying. You're not dying. They were 85. How many times did they have to remind themselves of that promise? How many times? It doesn't matter how many times you have to remind yourself. Read it again. Write it down again. Write your promise down again. You may see people dying all around you. Millions, hundreds of thousands of people died around Joshua and Caleb because it was the whole unbelieving generation. Even Moses died. Remember, Moses couldn't go into the promised land. So it was Joshua and Caleb and everybody younger than 40. So in the midst of 40 years of death, they stayed focused on the declaration and the promise, the word of the Lord. Wrap your heart tightly around the hope that lives within us, knowing that God always keeps his promises. We'll pick up here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.